Come on, folks! Once you put the pointy things down and take a look at this from a different perspective, this could be the best thing for the entire franchise. Hey folks, MasakoX here. If you were with myself and Carthu's dojo for the Dragon Ball Super livestream event at Comic-Con, well, I say livestream, it was more like a video they just dropped at a certain time and most people skipped it to the main stuff, you would be naturally forgiven to have felt a little bit underwhelmed at the end of it. Especially when you had seen quite compelling stuff before that at the beginning, which got myself and Carthu very excited for where this latest animated feature of Dragon Ball might be heading. Or it could be a total red herring and we've been played for a bunch of saps. There is always that to consider. After all, Toriyama is known for that. He may have mellowed out since his early days, but old habits have a habit in themselves to stick around in some capacity. Now that Haverock has come back from vacation and given me his thoughts, it's finally time for us to talk properly in a formal video about why both of us are so excited about Dragon Ball Super Superhero and what lies beyond for the series and franchise as a whole. Just because we have a title, let's remember that, doesn't mean that we have the whole picture yet, so it's time for us to compose ourselves and make the most of what we have to digest at this certain moment. So ever since the days of when Dragon Ball Z was originally coming out in both the Japanese and Western markets, the biggest criticism laid toward it overall has been that it's gotten a little bit too formulaic, that it's become stale, predictable, like you know what's going to happen next, and the same camera movements to denote power and mystery are used, ad nauseum, which ironically makes it not a mystery anymore. You can see it laid bare, especially in the early Super Dragon Ball Heroes promotional anime episodes. All the samey tropes are used, and since the episodes are shorter, it's even more obvious. Now, the more cynical people out there are even saying that it has become even more apparent in the Super era, with Toyotaro having his particular formula and style of doing things, that we are, at the time of writing the script, at the part of the story when Vegeta gets his 5 minutes of fame, only to be thwarted again. Granted, it is a valid argument to some extent, but it's a very oversimplified one. The anime filler tends to add some bits and pieces of slice of life in order to act as some connective tissue between one saga and the next, and it arguably is some of the more competent stuff in that regard than either of the big mangakas can come up with themselves. In fact, some of my favourite Super episodes are when the characters are just going about their business waiting for the next big bad to arrive. The sight of Goku flying away carrying a tractor will go down in infamy for the right reasons. It's just too funny. But as we can see later on, those more peaceful relationships are often endorsed by both Toriyama and Toyotaro, and can be used down the line of modern Dragon Ball. In short, those two can look back at those moments that the anime team came up with and went like, oh, that's cool. Let's do our own version. That's why when it comes to the setting of the upcoming feature that we saw the first glimpses of in last month, we are super excited about Super's superhero movie. Yes, I know, that's 3 supers in one sentence. I am not going to excuse that title for being clunky. It is. A good discussion can see valid points from both sides. I agree, it's not the best title, but we can still think of the meaning behind it, and I'm sure people will get used to it. I hope. For example, from the initial content drops, we are getting something potentially that the fandom has been craving for the better part of 3 decades. A true progression from the end of Z portion of the story. Or perhaps a rewrite of that time altogether. We finally have a time skip on our hands that we've been begging for since Super first released. If you think we're not getting a time skip, Pan's older than she is in Super. That's pretty gosh darn big proof. And mostly because Super's sort of a midquel, it puts the series in a very awkward place, or at least it has. For too long we've said that Super is cool, but it's also very safe. We know the gang are going to turn out okay, since we know they are around for the last 3 episodes of Dragon Ball Z, the stuff that happens in age 784, where Super hasn't got to yet. But now, it may very well be there, or be going past it. And yes, while the whole Goten and Trunks thing can be sort of explained away in that one line from the Jacko the Galactic Patrolman manga, you should really go and read it, even if you are Sophie B, they aren't entirely Saiyan, we gotta remember that. They're not Goku entirely. Also, there is future Trunks to consider, who was genetically identical to the main timeline Trunks and was growing at a much more human pace, like we saw in the History of Trunks special, in that the 13 or 14-year-old Trunks looked like a teenager. There was no issue about that. So we're gonna call that straight up BS, Mr. Toriyama, because Trunks, in Super, right now, he's meant to be about 13, and there's just no comparing, is it? Now, we cannot be sure if we've gone past the end of Z in this movie or not at this time. We need more content and information before we can make more solid conjectures. What we can ascertain, though, is that Pan is in the movie and is likely to be talking. She seems to be a little bit older, but then again, this might be the differences in animation styles between Yamamuro, Shintani, and this new hybrid animation style they're going for in the movie, which seems to be sort of mimicking Toyotaro's manga panels. In fact, you could argue that the look of this movie is going for a more manga-like feel, bringing the two mediums together through style and colour. But that, in detail, is for another time. Going back to Pan, our biggest clue for the content going forward in this movie, we can especially notice is her hair. It's no longer unkempt and resembles more like Super Vidal's and herself from GT. And in a way, it sort of mimics her father's pudding basin haircut from the Namek saga. Had Grandma Chi-Chi cut Pan's hair lately before going to her first day at school? Now, what fills me particularly with joy, and what may fill others with dread or frustration, is that this story might be more geared towards the characters having more of a slice-of-life affair with the narrative, with maybe some fighting in it for good measure. Yes! And whilst we can safely presume that the story might be more calm, more personal for the characters, we do need to remind ourselves that there will be action in it. Of course there's going to be fighting, it's Dragon Ball! But also the initial Dragon Ball story, remember, it was built around comedy and friendship and adventure. It is Dragon Ball after all. But to really be able to go forward, to really ensure that this franchise will keep going smoothly for another decade, is that we need build up toward a more hybrid solution. We need to take some time with these characters and change some of the status quos, to give the characters new purposes and drives to ensure they don't go stale. Or any more stale. But that's right though, the homeless Piccolo meme is dead, folks! Alongside Pan, Piccolo was featured with his own character design sheet, with more manga-accurate colours. Neat! Might he in this movie be a mentor and caretaker for Pan, like he was for Gohan? I think it certainly couldn't hurt him to be such a thing for Pan. It would definitely allow his arc to proceed further in some way. Maybe not as an all-out fighter, but to solidify him as being part of the Son family, and to see where his character could go once he himself has reached more Namekian maturity. I mean, remember, Gohan and he are only a few years different in terms of chronological age. And come on, Piccolo totally is part of the Son family now, and his moments with Pan and Super are just so adorable. And for the longest time, he's hung out at Gohan's place and often been doing daycare for Pan, so those two are pretty much like that. If the Dragon World had godparents in it, we're pretty sure Piccolo would have been one for either Gohan or Pan. But for now though, we know too little to even remotely speculate on a problem our heroes could encounter, what the actual plot is of the story. That little additional teaser that we got was merely a tech demo, that little animation, for what we could expect for the upcoming film. But again, that's a whole other video. Sort of like what we got in the first teaser of the Broly movie actually, the content if you think about it. Goku jumping around in a fluid motion. Could this story be something similar, if you think about it, in scope to the 2008 Yo Son Goku special? Or will it maybe have greater ramifications? We don't know. That is the truth of the matter. We need more total clarification. But after seeing those first bits of concept art, we cannot help but wonder. Is Goku going to be a side character in this movie? Is he not the feature? It's crossed our minds, and the latest manga arc has mostly been about Vegeta. Goku not really doing anything big in the Granola saga thus far. It's mostly been about Vegeta's progression. Is this movie going to follow a similar path, in that Goku is there, but he's not the main focus of the film? Let's be real here, he is going to appear in the movie. It's Dragon Ball, and Goku is the beefiest of the cash cows Toei has at their disposal. He's in that little tech demo, so he is going to be in the movie. We're not saying that he's not. But he might not be the main character. His appearance might be more akin to a cameo, like he had in the GT special A Hero's Legacy. If this is truly around the end of Z time in the story, he might be away training Oob. He might be too busy to be featuring fully. Think about it. If that's the case, Goku being a bit on the side, maybe this movie's finally going to be passing a torch, if not the torch, to something else. See, back in the Buu saga, Toriyama wasn't ready to pass it on to Gohan. He said it himself many times looking back on it. He tried to make it work, he really did, to seal the deal on the whole point of Dragon Ball Z. Come on, Gohan was the main focus of the second opening for Z, We Gotta Power. But in the end, the creator felt that he wasn't best suited for the role, and had Goku come back in to take the win, which became the series' legacy until, well, now really. And while it seems that Goten and Trunks might be getting a pass here, in that they're not going to be the main torchbearers going forward, Pan seems to have her grandpa's passion for fighting and adventure, and Videl isn't like Chi-Chi. She's not opposed to the notion in the slightest, or at least we've not seen it. So maybe this movie could be exploring her, Pan, learning about what it takes to be a hero. The superhero is Pan. Like maybe a more tame version of the year that Gohan spent in the wastelands with Piccolo in the Saiyan saga. Hopefully tamer. I mean, oof. Because, let's be honest, Gohan never really liked fighting, but Pan, she seems to be pretty excited about the prospect, and she has natural talent. Because, come on, if a baby could breathe in space, produce ki, and give the Pilaf gang trouble without even thinking, there's definitely potential. Part of that is due to the fact that both of her parents have martial arts experience and aptitude. Whilst Chi-Chi was a fighter in her own right, her relationship with fighting was, let's say it was a means to an end. And if you look at this closely, Gohan got that trait from her. For him, fighting was a means to an end, to get closer to his father and help his friends. So, is it possible that what comes next is the new chapter of Dragon Ball that's dedicated to Pan? A female lead? Interesting. Well, yeah, okay, yes. To us it does feel a bit like wishful thinking. But at the same time, we thought we'd never get a time skip, so who knows what could happen? For us, having Pan as the main character sounds fantastic. What we can tell for sure, though, is that this movie is going to be important. Very important. With Toriyama's involvement, Toei may be more bold and receptive to allow history to get a proper chapter, for us to see new characters take a charge, and for the older ones to get some sort of conclusion. Wrap them up. Don't just leave them in limbo. Toriyama can give his direct blessing for things to evolve. They don't have to be scared anymore of change. And this could go both ways. It might go well or might completely flop. But finally, after preaching this need, Haverock and I, for almost 5 years, we are at a very important moment in the series. Are these first images just minor details and the movie's just going to return to a tried and tested formula? Perhaps. But seeing how Broly was marketed to us, we simply don't think that that's possible. Surely not. But with our experience, we're not going to wholly dismiss that chestnut. It could happen, but we very much doubt it. With GT out of the timeline for certainty, but not out of the entire equation, it's, profitable. It's entirely possible that the future may hold some familiar elements. Do keep in mind that we live in an age of multiverses in pop culture, cinematic universes. And while Dragon Ball, especially Heroes in Xenoverse, has been doing that since before it was cool, we haven't seen things like that in the main timeline yet. It's been very well contained, sealed, like the sacred timeline. So, maybe we will see the GT timeline once more, maybe crossing over with Super in something less promotional and gimmicky. Maybe we might have some experiments like that we see in Dragon Ball Heroes in the video games. It's hard to say, but the future does seem exciting. It's clear to us now that we're not getting a total reboot from the very beginning. And that's okay. But what we might be getting is a totally new era that could totally put everything on its head. And in a weird way, Dragon Ball Super Superhero might be the most important movie since Battle of Gods. Broly was spectacular, don't get us wrong. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a big lore dump, and it was more of a side story. Like a slightly more enhanced Resurrection F. Please don't let this new movie be that. But the next movie, it might take us into a future that could change the series forever. Or, it will be the Goku and Vegeta show all over again. Oh well, At least in this movie we know for sure that Piccolo's got a house and has a mailbox. I wonder who's writing to him. Is it Tom? So what do you folks think? Are you excited for the newest Dragon Ball Super movie? Or have you decided to erase it from your mind, not planning to see it, forget it's going to happen? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!